Hey class, today we are going to be talking about the statistical measure of the spread of data. Now, so far we've been talking about measures of center, and the measures of center tell where the middle of the data is. For example, in this data, the majority of the data is all at the mean here because you have a very symmetric distribution. However, given the center of the data, in this case the mean, probably the median and the mode as well, are all in the same place. However, that doesn't tell the whole story. It doesn't tell how spread out the data is. You can see that A, the data is not very spread, whereas for B, it's much more spread out. And for C, that curve represents a very spread out set of data. So how concentrated the data is in one spot and how spread out it is tells you an even bigger story about the data. And another word for spread is dispersion. Okay, so the most basic measure of spread is the range of the data. And when it asks you to calculate the range is just the maximum value minus the minimum value. So the range of ages of students at BA is going to be, I think they have 3-year-olds all the way to 18-year-olds. So for BA, the maximum age, I don't think we have any 19-year-olds, but if we do, I apologize. I believe it's 18 though, minus, and we have some 3-year-olds. So the range is 15 years. So when you calculate the range, it is one value. So make sure you do your subtraction here. And it does describe some aspects of the data, but it fails to consider other data points besides the min and maximum. So the range tells you more of a story than just the mean, median, and mode, but it's not the only way to measure how spread or dispersed the data is. What we can do is split the data up into 4 even sets, and that gives us even more information on where the majority of the data lies. So this is some sample data for ages of people that attended the movie Black Panther at the theater. And it's just a sampling of the data. It wasn't everyone who went to the theater. So at the youngest, we had a 6-year-old, and at the oldest, we had a 78-year-old. And then it shows all the ages in between. And what I'm going to do is show you how to split the data up into quartiles. So what I'm going to first do is count my data. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 sets of or people that I spoke with. So since I have an odd number of people that I spoke with, my middle is going to be an actual number. So I have 11 people. If I divide that by 2, the 5th person, or in other words, the 6th person, is going to be my median. So when you list the people in order, in this case, youngest to eldest, you can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And that is my median. So what I'm going to do when my median is a number, I put a box around that number to denote that person splits the data in half. So if you are younger than that, you are part of the lower half of the ages or the younger group of people. And if you are above that age, above 38, you're going to be part of the upper half of the data. So the first step into splitting things up into quartiles is you find the median. Then after you find the median, you want to split the first half and the last half of the data in half. So my first half of the data, my younger people, I'm going to find the median of this data. So the median of this data, I think we can recognize, is going to be 19. So 19 we call Q1, or the first quartile. So the first quartile cuts off the first quarter of the data. So we have 6 and 15 being in the lower 25th percentile of ages. Okay. Q2 is just another word for the median, or the second quartile is just another word for the median. And then if we look at the upper half of the data, We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 data in there. So our middle number there is 55. Nope, sorry, 56. And that's going to be our third quartile, which I denote with a Q3. Okay. If you do the quartiles correct, everything before the quartile and then between the quartiles should all be equal. So I have 2 people before, 2 people in between, 2 people in between this one, and 2 people at the end. So that means I have split this data up into 4 even sets. Okay, so our quartiles tell us what percent of people are in certain ranges. So you could say the 16 and the 15-year-olds were in the bottom 25% of the data. The 65 and the 78 people, so these 2 people, are in the upper 75th percent of data, so 75th and higher, because this is the 25th percentile, the 50th percentile, and the 75th percentile. You could also say that these people, all the way to here, are in the middle 50th percent of the data. So the middle of the data are between 19 and 56-year-olds, or the middle 50th percentile. So that's what we call the broad middle of the data, where the majority of the people, or half of the data, are going to be between 19 and 56 years old. The way to quantify this middle 50th percentile is to calculate what is called the interquartile range, or the IQR. The IQR is a range which describes the middle 50% of the data. And so it's not the whole range, it's not the highest minus the lowest age in there, it's the range of the middle of the data. So to find the IQR, or the interquartile range, we do Q3, which is 56, minus Q1, which is 19. Okay. So that's going to be 37 years is our IQR. Or the middle of our data right there. So we have big ranges when the middle 50% ranges in 37 years. It means the data is pretty spread out. It doesn't mean, oh, they were all teenagers at this Black Panther. There were people that were young, there were people that are old, and pretty much everywhere in between. So this is how you split data up into quartiles. Okay, so some questions can be answered regarding the data now. I can ask, what percent of people are 19 or under? Well, if I go back to my data, I look, 19 is at the first quartile, or the first 25% of the data. So 25% of people are 19 or under, because that is Q1 and below. Okay, so Q1 and below is the first 25% of the data, and each of those are just 25%. All right, so what we are going to do is look at some data from BA. This was the basketball team for the girls 2 years ago. So you can see some familiar names on here, and then some names of students that have graduated, such as Teresa and Annika. The 2 captains that year, they have graduated, and all the sophomores and freshmen are still here. So what we're going to do is find the median, the lower and upper quartiles, and the interquartile range of this data. Just so you know, the lower quartile is Q1 and the upper quartile is Q3. So what I'm going to first do is list this data in order. All of the girls here are either 5 foot, or we do have a 6 foot tall person here. So, oh, here's Grace. Yay. There you are. I feel like you're taller than 5'8". Yeah. So you've grown. So let's take a look. I'm going to arrange the data in order. But before I do that, I'm going to write their height in inches instead of in feet and inches, just so I have consistent units here. So Teresa is 5'4". 5 foot is 60 inches. So she's going to be 64 inches tall. And then 5 foot, again, is 60 inches. So 68 inches tall. Then we can just kind of continue this pattern here. Now, 6 foot, 6 times 12 is 72 inches and 6 feet. So there are all the girls' height in inches. Now I'm going to arrange these in order from lowest to highest. Okay, I think I got them all, but I'm going to go ahead and count the players. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 players, and I'm going to count to see if I have the same number of data points. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. All right, I have 14 data points. So 14 divided by 2, it goes unevenly, so that's 7. So what that means is I'm going to be able to split the data into 2 equal parts without calling my median a number. My median is actually going to be between 2 data points. Let me show you how that looks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So between these two 68s is my median value. And I know that's my median because I'll have 7 girls taller than that and 7 girls shorter than that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So there's my median value. And to find the median, since these are the same, the median is going to be that very number. But if these were not the same, you would just add them together and divide by 2. You would find the average of those 2 numbers. But in this case, the average of 68 and 68 are just 68 inches. So the girl that is in the median of the data is 68 inches. Now, in terms of the quartiles, what I want to do is find the median of the first half of my data. So the first half of my data has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 numbers. If I divide 7 by 2, I get 3.5. So the fourth number, 1, 2, 3, 4, is going to be my median. I'm sorry, my median of my first half of the data, which is Q1, my first quartile. And notice if I do it correctly, I should have the same number of girls before that Q1 than I do after that Q1. And I do. I have 3 girls before and 3 after. So there's my Q1 at 64. Then I'm going to find the median of the second half of my data. That number, which splits the data in half, is going to be right here. It's going to be Q3. Okay. And if I do this correctly, I should have the same number of basketball players in each quartile. So I have 3 girls, 3 girls, 3, and 3. And so I've split them all into equal parts. So my lower quartile is 64 inches and my upper quartile is 70 inches. So what that means is 50% of my girls are in that range. So between 5'4" and 5'10". That's where the majority or it's called the broad middle of the data is. That's where a bunch of girls will lie in terms of their heights. The IQR is just Q3 minus Q1. Or the first quartile minus the third quartile. So that's going to be 70 inches minus 64 inches. So that means 6 inches is going to be my IQR. So we have my median is 68. My lower quartile is 64. Upper quartile or Q3 is 70. And my IQR is 6 inches. That little quote mark means inches. So what that means is I have 6 inches that separates the low from the high in the broad middle of my data. So 6 inches separate that. So that means I have a good range. If you have just 1 or 2 inches separating, that means a lot of people are the same height. But in this case, we have 6 inches separating our Q1 and our Q3. All right, so that is how you do finding the median and Q1, Q3, and the IQR. So a lot of times when I grade a test, I look at the lower and upper quartiles to just see where are the majority of people scoring. And what it does is it leaves out lower scores and leaves out higher scores. So you can just look at that middle of the data, which can be useful. A little more useful than just looking at the median. Gives you a sense of how spread apart the data is. So if we take a look, today's assignment is going to be 14C1. You're going to complete problems 1 through 4. Okay, awesome. Have a good day, guys.